Active duty American service members stationed in the United States live both on and off military bases. Costs are fully covered for those who live on base or in government owned housing. But for those who live off base or in privatized military housing, the Department of Defense provides an allowance to cover most, but not all of the costs. Hello and welcome to Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Tetiana Anderson. America's military service members are eligible to receive a stipend intended to cover 95% of expenses related to housing and utilities. That means some are left paying out of pocket for the remaining 5%, often adding financial strain to service members and their families. Joining me to talk about a bipartisan bill to increase the allowance to cover 100% of housing is Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, Democrat from the state of Washington. She is co-author of the Basic Allowance for Housing Restoration Act. And Congresswoman Strickland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on today.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper into this massive issue here. Explain the housing challenges that U.S. military service members are currently facing.
Absolutely. When you look at the cost of housing across the United States, but especially in the Pacific Northwest, where I represent Joint Base Lewis and McChord, there's a housing shortage and therefore prices are high. 70% of the people who serve in the military do not live on post, so they often have to rely on housing outside of the base. And so because housing prices are high, we want to make sure that they're getting their full 100% of the basic allowance for housing.
So we know that some service members are receiving housing allowances,
Right.
but at the same time, they're also struggling to find affordable housing.
Exactly.
What's behind this gap?
So I'd say the gap is, again, the supply of housing being low, the prices being high. And we're talking about the difference between the 95% versus 100%, but for a family, that could be $250 a month. And when you add taking care of your kids and food, every little bit really counts.
So you say that this is more than just about housing. This is
Absolutely.
actually a national security issue.
It is.
Explain that for us.
So when we talk about people wanting to join the military, we want to make sure that they want to stay. So it's a recruiting issue and a retention issue. And we talk about readiness. And the best way for our troops to be ready is to know that their families are securely housed and financially secure. So this will help alleviate some of those challenges.
So I know that you and Congressman Don Bacon, he's a Republican from Nebraska, really introduced this Basic Allowance for Housing Restoration Act.
Right.
Why is bipartisan support on an issue like this so important?
Well, there are so many issues where we should have bipartisan support, but we were part of a bipartisan quality of life panel through the House Armed Services Committee, and he was chair of it. So we worked on things from housing to childcare to quality of life to employment for spouses, but housing is the top issue for the families. And so we worked on this together, and there's also a companion Senate bill being introduced by Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia.
What do you think can be done sort of beyond this bipartisan act that you have to support military families when it comes to housing challenges that you're facing? And how can communities also step in to help?
Yeah, I would say a few things. Communities obviously are outside the military base. We're talking about cities and towns. We need to build as much housing as we can as quickly as possible. There's a bill that I'm also co-introducing with Blake Moore from Utah, who's a Republican, and it's about building more low-income housing within a 15-mile radius of military bases. But this really comes down to how much money do military families have in their pockets to pay for essentials. So if spouses can find employment, if we're addressing some of the challenges around food insecurity, it's just better off for the families.
Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks to you as well for watching. As always, for more great conversations with leaders in your own community and across the nation, visit ComcastNewsmakers.com. I'm Tetiana Anderson.